It is a high priority for me to ensure EPA never wastes any of your hard-earned tax dollars. That is my commitment to President Trump, Congress, and the American people. That's why I've pledged to cut at least 65% of the Environmental Protection Agency's total spending. We don't want the extra money, and we don't need it. We won't be funding left-wing ideological pet projects like the past administration.
Big news there. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin vowing to slash his department's budget by 65%. Zeldin saying the EPA awarded and spent more than $63 billion last year, largely on Biden administration agenda items.
And he claims less than 35% of that total is actually needed to run the agency efficiently. Zeldin plans to make cuts by shrinking the size of the agency's workforce, reduce the rent on agency buildings, and also suspend funds for a museum focused on environmental justice, just to name a few. Tyler O'Neill joins us, the author of the book Woketopus, The Dark Money Cabal Manipulating the Federal Government. Welcome, Tyler. Also here, Steve Malloy is a senior E&E legal fellow and a former Trump EPA transition team member. So welcome. And thanks for coming on. All right, Tyler, we'll start with you. That sounds like a lot of money, right? That would be leaving the EPA. Was it necessary to begin with? And what do you make of Lee Zeldin's moves here?
Yeah, no, it wasn't necessary at all. And it's very important to note what environmental justice is. It's the intersection of two noxious ideologies on the left. Critical race theory, which teaches that America is inherently racist and needs fundamental structural reforms to root out racism, despite the long history of civil rights acts making America colorblind in the law. And climate alarmism, which teaches that because we're burning fossil fuels, we're going to bring about the end of the world. These ideologies come together as part of the synthesis I describe as woke in my book. And my book lays out how far-left activist groups infiltrated and advised the federal government under the Biden administration, using the levers of the administrative state to force its agenda on the American people.
Yeah, 65% cut to the EPA budget. That's a big deal. Steve Malloy, bringing into this conversation. So one of the words or the terminology that was used by Zeldin was these pet projects. One of those is looking to spend less money on this EPA museum, which he says failed to account for the first Trump administration. He actually slammed the Biden administration for even funding this initiative. Watch this.
For example, they spent millions of tax dollars on a museum to praise environmental justice that is the size of a one-bedroom apartment just blocks from the White House and costs hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to operate. And that museum was designed with major gaps in EPA history, namely between 2016 to January 2021.
You know, Steve, I mean, when you hear it explained like that, you wouldn't think that America is in debt at all. You know, you're not $30-something trillion because we're building, museums and it costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars for an upkeep. But clearly there's money somewhere. He's getting rid of this. Steve.
Yeah, so Sean and Emma, thanks for having me. Look, the vast majority of EPA's budget can go away. Most environmental protection today is done in the states. When EPA was set up by executive order 50 years ago, it was not like that. But things have changed. We're in much better shape environmentally. Most of the action is occurring in the states. We need a much smaller EPA. A lot of the money that EPA got last year was from the Inflation Reduction Act, as President Trump calls it, the Green New Scam. And that money has really been stolen by taxpayers and channeled to left-wing activist groups, including one by Stacey Abrams. She got $2 billion ostensibly to buy appliances for people. If you liked Obama phones, you're really going to like Biden refrigerators and air conditioners. So there's lots of money that can be cut. The functionality needs to go to the states. Lee Zeldin is doing exactly the right thing.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why Democrats, without looking into the finer details, their environmental advocacy seems to be so popular is because people do want clean air, they want clean water, they want to help the environment overall. And those aren't bad things. Those are good things, Tyler. Will the Trump administration be able to handle that with the money they've got left?
Yes, 100%. And the main thing here is if you look at the way the EPA has been run, you had Michael Regan, who used to be at the Environmental Defense Fund, one of these leftist NGOs, came over to head it under Obama. And we've seen a repeated cycle where the EPA, so we have these laws like the Clean Air Act, which rightly says Americans want clean air. And of course, Congress then didn't make the rules to have clean air. They shifted that responsibility over to the EPA. So what happens now is this really horrible system called sue and settle, where a green activist group like the Sierra Club will file a lawsuit against an agency like the EPA. The activists in the EPA agree with the Sierra Club and want to crack down on oil and gas. So the Sierra Club says, you got to crack down on oil and gas in order to follow the law. And the EPA says, oh, yes, please, sir, may I have another? And they give them money in the form of a settlement. And then they also give them the regulation that this green activist group wants. So it's a really horrible system that leaves the American people's interests out in the cold.
All right. Tyler O'Neill weighing in, as well as Steve Malloy. Thank you both. We appreciate that.